Am I on TV? Hello? Hi, America. Don't I look like Beauty and the Beast? I know. Yeah, I had a dress-up box when I was little, and Beauty and the Beast dress, or Belle's dress, was like my go-to. I feel like it's the only thing that I retained. So, do you guys want to be interviewed?
Okay.
Welcome. Okay, you're welcome. Hello.
Hi.
So, welcome to Pillow Talk. This is Sex and Love in the City. And do you guys have sex?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Let's say your name. First of all. I have a lot of sex. Cammy.
Cammy?
Martina.
Martina. That's Cammy and Martina, for the people at home. And so, how old are you guys?
I'm 23. 23.
You have like the effervescence of youth. I wonder how much I have to use this mic. Okay. It just feels so.
Well,
It's
I
cool.
like it, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. So tell me about what you guys are wearing.
This is a men's shirt that I embroidered with some sequins, and then a skirt. It's Rag and Bone, and I bought it a long time ago.
Rag and Bone. EBT.
EBT, yeah.
This is Missoni, right? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, this is a Missoni dress with angel wings.
Wow, that is beautiful. That's really special. Missoni has some real, like, true gems in their arsenal.
Sometimes I like to tie them to a bracelet.
Oh, that's so
But
nice.
I have another dress where I can do that, but this one it limits the arm movement
Yeah.
a lot.
And so I see here you've got like a little rice grain going on in there. What is
Yes.
it? What does it say?
It's nowhere.
Nowhere.
Yeah, my friend made it for me, and it's based off of the Greg Araki movie Nowhere.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that movie. Greg Araki is one of the best contributors to our culture as millennials, Gen Z. You guys Gen Z? I think you're Gen
We're
Z.
like the cusp.
What year were you born in?
Yeah.
95.
Yeah.
Okay, no, you're the end of millennials. Yes, good for you. 96 is the cutoff, and then after that, everyone's addicted to Snapchat. It's really sad. Jewel, yes. Well, everyone jewel. Yeah, everyone jewels. I feel like there's a real broad spectrum of jeweling. Do you don't jewel?
No, my sister. Oh, my sister does.
It's okay.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
But I think cigarettes are cooler, which is like probably bad.
Cigarettes are unfortunately cooler than jewels, but I have asthma, so I'm ultimately the least cool.
I was saying I just moved back from Berlin 3 weeks ago, and there I think it's like a really intense smoking culture. Like wherever you sit down, there's like ashtrays put in front of you and stuff. And
The whole point of Europe, I think, is really just smoking and wine in the daytime and just doing it with like absolute authority. Like it's right, not like questioning. It's whether you're like supposed to or shouldn't or whatever.
That's like what they're contributing really is like shamelessly smoking.
No conscience culture.
I worked in a hair salon, and you could smoke in the hair salon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot going on. You've got like hairspray. You've got
That's
hair.
what I'm saying. Like, doesn't it just blow up?
And like my issue with smoking, you guys both have short hair, so it wouldn't really be so much of a big deal. But I just have so much hair that it just traps the smell of smoke, and it's just like, I couldn't.
Does your hair wake up like that?
No, no, I am a very strategic person. It's
And the other big thing in Berlin is the tattoo culture. I just want to share it because I base my outfits now around my new back tattoo. So this is
Can you see
yes.
it?
Microphone moment.
it's beautiful. It's
It's based off of. See, I base a lot of my outfits around now. I'm investing in a lot of halter tops, and
I've been searching for the perfect knit striped halter top on eBay that nobody else is allowed to get now that I've said it. I found one from Marc Jacobs on the Real, and I was like, this is great, but $55 is still too much.
Yes.
For a Forever 21 looking top. I don't know.
Facts. Yeah.
It's the burden of excessive choice.
Yeah.
When I was 14, I figured out how to like turn a t-shirt into a halter top, and it was just like groundbreaking for me. I was like turn every t-shirt I owned into a halter top, and it was like and then it was like right before it became like a really big like festival like thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was right before.
Cutting edge.
Yeah, and then I had a ton of halter tops, and they started to like lose. Like I felt less unique wearing them, but yeah, that's. They're always coming back.
I've been seeing people looking totally naked. Okay, so I guess you guys are done. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey, welcome. How's it going?
Good.
I'm just gonna hug you like that's what I was going to do anyway. Okay, so state your name, please.
Valentina Vaccarella.
Valentina Vaccarella. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So you're here today as part of the event. You're participating. You're discussing. You've made videos. Right?
I made one video specifically. It's a film documentation of a live performance.
Cool. What's the live performance like?
It is very subtle but provocative and self-evident.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll see it soon. How are we doing?
I'm getting feedback that the mic is windy. Maybe we can.
Oh, hold it closer.
Shelter.
Hello. Okay. So, provocative, self-evident, Valentina. That's your line, right?
My life is provocative and
Is that the
self-evident?
video?
No, not all
No.
the time.
So what's your day-to-day like? Yes, for you.
Yeah.
So, tell me about yourself. Where are you from?
From here.
You're from New York.
New York.
Here?
Yeah. Popped down at Lenox Hill Hospital.
I was Mount Sinai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you lived in the city your whole life?
No, I lived half in New York City, half in Miami, and I've been back here for 6 years now.
Cool.
Yes.
And how does New York compare to Miami in terms of like the sort of when were you last in Miami living there?
I was actually visiting a week ago, but I was last in Miami 6 years ago living there.
Sorry.
Last living there 6 years ago.
Cool.
Yes.
So welcome. Hey. That's awesome. I was totally distracted by what we were saying. And I was wondering, I was going to ask you, how does Miami compare, like, dating-wise to New York?
Dating-wise, New York is more transactional. Miami is more impulsive.
That sort of, like, sun-bleached, like, devil-may-care, kind of neon energy.
Well, stereotypically, yes, but it's just, well, first of all, in New York, you meet more people more quickly and you want to keep your options open. And in Florida, I think you tend to grasp onto things that are meaningful longer.
That's cool.
Yes.
Like a sunset.
Maybe, yeah.
Sorry, I love
fleeting.
I love stereotyping Miami, but not like in a condescending way. I feel it. It does it to itself. You just walk around, you're just like, you're so Miami.
I'll tell you, the difference between New York and Miami is more mystical and it's more challenging and it's more confrontational with your own demons.
Interesting.
Yes.
Confrontation with your own demons. Cool. You have this is a real New York look you've got going on here. I feel like you're going to whip me in the boardroom, like in a great way, like spank me in the boardroom. Sorry, not whip.
Spanking in the boardroom. Who's doing the spanking?
Maybe. All right. So I think that I'm going to see you on the discussion room, in the discussion area, and I'm going to move on. Thank you.
See you.
Hello. Welcome. Yes, come on over.
My name is Gerardo. Nice meeting you.
Sorry?
Gerardo.
Gerardo. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
So, what brings you to Pillow Talk?
Well, I came with my son Delany, who is Natasha's boyfriend.
Oh, cool.
And
Cool.
so I'm just sub-invited.
No, I mean,
Anybody?
everyone's invited. I think this is
Awesome.
you're adding some really cool evolution. Like, I love your pants also. This is a really This is a special look that stuck out to me when you walked in. I felt like everyone here is doing a different kind of. There's really distinctive costumery going on, but yours is the most relaxed vibe, I would say.
Yes.
And you've got like a backpack, a drawstring backpack.
Yeah, I don't trust these pants.
No.
With all my gears, so I put all my stuff here, my IDs and my monies and whatever gets me through the day.
That's great. So, you live in New York?
No, actually visiting.
You're visiting.
I've been here for 20-some days. I'll be here. Yeah, I'm staying with Danny, and I'm staying with friends and on the west side, on Tribeca, and I've been staying all over.
How do you like New York?
I adore New York.
What's your favorite neighborhood?
Oh my God, please don't ask me that question.
If you were a neighborhood, what would you be?
If I were a neighborhood, where will I be? Oh my God, it's very difficult. I don't know how to answer that question because New York is so multifaceted that I don't need to go to museums. What I do in New York is I walk a lot and I see every neighborhood for what it is. And to me, New York is a big museum that I could not pick one particular place to call myself.
I'm assessing you right now. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to give you. I feel like you could be a hybrid of like Upper West Side and like, not Tribeca. No, Upper West Side and like, not like the cool part of Gowanus.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. That's it.
No, I like the Lower East Side. I enjoy the Lower East Side, and
We all love the Lower East Side.
I like the old-fashioned stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the old neighborhoods.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the village and so on. All this different.
The architecture.
Oh yeah, I love the architecture in New York. It's so varied.
Where are you coming from again?
I come from Chicago. The mecca of modern architecture. Yeah, it's the first modern city in the world. I love Chicago.
Chicago's beautiful. I love those parking lots.
Yeah.
That's all I remember.
No, I'm actually torn between Chicago and New York. I love them both, but I'm fascinated by New York because I don't live here. And every day is a new adventure. And I've been coming here for many years. 50 years I've been coming here.
And there's no Midwest energy here.
Nah.
Gotta take a break from it sometimes, right?
It's a total different feeling when you're back in Chicago. But it's a big cosmopolitan area. Chicago is just as exciting as New York in many ways. But New York has got this special fiber and energy no other city that I have been in the world has.
So let me ask you: do you and your son have like a close relationship where you're like totally comfortable or like attending an event with him where everyone's talking about sex?
I'm totally comfortable going anywhere with anybody.
That's
Not necessarily with my son. I mean, if I'm with him, it's wonderful. But if I'm by myself, anywhere I am, I'm comfortable. Cool. Doesn't matter where.
That's great. Yeah, no, you have the comfort vibe. So I am going to wrap this up, I think. But it's so great to meet you.
Nice meeting you. My pleasure.
See you in there.
Thank you. I'll see you outside.
Cool.
Thank you.
Hello. How are you? What's your name? Torey. Torey. I really like your name. Oh, thank you. Oh, it's breezy out here. I just do it for that. Look.
It's breezy. So, hi.
Hello.
Torey.
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
So, if you
This thing is crazy.
tilt towards the camera for a second, I just want everyone to see, is this an Aphex 20 earring?
Yeah.
Aphex 20 earring.
I wore that. Yeah, Aphex.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
Everyone
Someone made it
here-
in Moscow, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I get them off of eBay.
Yeah, I get everything off eBay. What's the last thing you bought on eBay?
The last thing I bought on eBay might have been a hat. I can't remember. I've been trying to be good about not spending as much money.
Yeah. I'm real selective on eBay. Today I found the perfect dance sneakers that I wanted, and they were a third of the price that I found them on Amazon for. And then I looked at the Amazon reviews, and they said that and it was actually my size, and never worn. And they said that the size runs like 2 sizes small, so it's a useless
So they don't
find.
work.
It's not for me
Are they
anymore.
like jazz
I thought
shoes
they
or
were the
temporary?
perfect. They were 6.5, my size, and I look at eBay and they said if you're a 6.5, get an 8. Just like
But
So-
they're
so I didn't buy 'em.
shoes for like modern or contemporary.
for just hip hop modern dance sneakers. Yeah, it's my thing. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, this is so cute.
Isn't it cute?
This is like a sculpture.
Yeah, this is a mic of love.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
So, what are your thoughts on modern love and sex in this city? Sorry, I'm gonna say it again. Your thoughts on modern love and sex in this city?
I like New York a lot, so I have like mostly positive thoughts about it all. But I'm still learning about what my thoughts are on it, I guess.
Okay.
And like
Okay.
expanding.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Are you in love currently?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
With Mara, my baby Mara.
Oh, that's really sweet. So Mara's here.
Yeah, she's here.
She's hearing this. You want to give her a shout out?
Shout out to Mara McKevitt, my favorite. Yeah.
Bless. Okay. Well, I guess that I am gonna move on to my next guest. But thank you so much for your time. See you soon. Welcome. Hello. Anna Frost. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Sorry?
I've been to events before.
You've been to events before.
I've been to
You've been to Pillow Talk events.
before.
Oh, okay. Anna Frost, real participant in culture. How are you?
Good.
So, last night you attended a rave after a show that you curated opened.
Yes.
So, how are you feeling?
I feel fine.
No hangover?
Not really. At raves, you don't really drink.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably. I bet you're right. And did you attend the wedding at Honey's beforehand last night?
I did, yes.
You did?
We all went there. We all danced in, like, I don't know what you call it here, but it's called like a, kind of like a worm.
Was there another word, another language you were going to call it?
Kill dance. Yeah, like,
Kill dance.
that's how they say it in
Cool.
Danish.
Okay, can you tell me the Danish word for like I was gonna say something dirty, but this is broadcast to the world. Okay, what's the Danish word for fuck me?
Knip mig.
Say it again.
Knip mig.
Knipma. That's kind of cute. It's kind of
Knip is fuck and my is me.
cool. Knipma.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the earrings you're wearing.
Today I'm wearing earrings made by Emma Pride, an artist that I had in the show yesterday.
Uh-huh.
She lives in Madison. She just came back to Chicago. She texted me like half an hour ago.
Oh my god.
That she made it back.
She made her flight.
There for the opening yesterday.
Yes, she was. I met her.
Jordan was in the show as well.
Might have been. And yeah, these are gorgeous earrings for it. I like it. And your shirt is this is from the performance that was like 2 weeks ago. This is what I'm saying. Anna Frost, real participant in culture.
Yeah.
Gotcha. She was telling me I look really pretty.
That's true.
Thank you. You look really pretty too.
Today?
I would love to tell you what I'm wearing. I am wearing a dress by Lou Dallas. Rafaela Hanley is Lou Dallas. It's got this little sort of tramp stamp kind of beautiful thing going on that I'm really excited about. And yeah, I am borrowing it. But it feels...
I'm sure she loves it on you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure she does too. Okay, well, I guess I will see you in there, Anna. I'm going to move on to my next guest. Thank you for your time. Hi, Fiona.
How's it going?
Fiona Duncan, everybody.
I'm the woman with the remote.
She's the one with the remote.
In charge.
Fiona, this is all your creation, all your organization.
Well, no.
Or collaboration.
Collaboration, very much so.
You're sort of the inceptive source, no?
Yeah. I'm the amniotic fluid.
Amniotic fluid.
Yeah.
Cool.
And maybe the womb also. But not the egg or the seed.
No. Really? I would think you're the kind of the seed.
I don't want to be the seed.
Oh, no, you don't have to be the seed. Okay.
No, I want other people's seeds. I'm
No.
more interested in other people's ideas.
That's cool. But you just also wrote a book, so...
That's
we're all really excited to hear your ideas and that. I'm really excited to hear your ideas.
Exquisite Mariposa. I'm going to introduce our next guest, actually, because Fifi's shy.
Shy.
You'll see me 2 months
Thank you
later
so much
also.
for your
Thank
beautiful
you,
time.
Jordan. This is Sasha Frere-Jones. We have lots of writers present. This is the writer, low-key writer.
Cool.
Sorry. Hey.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
Hey, Jordan. Yes.
Sasha, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, Jordan.
Writer as well?
Yes.
Cool. What do you write about?
I write about books and music.
Do you like my rose?
I do like your rose.
Yeah, this is actually a rose ceremony, like in The Bachelor, and so at the end of whoever's my last guest gets. No, I'm kidding.
No. I don't know a lot about The Bachelor. I'm sorry.
Me neither. I've watched one season. I thought it was.
I feel like I should know because my friends really like it, and
I think that the basic premise is like it's kind of there, and everyone's sort of right. Like there's one person of one gender and a bunch of people of the other gender, and they're all vying for the one's affection.
gotta have a lot of arguments.
Do you think that that is sort of a refutation on the idea of true connection and love? Because you're signing up and for something and already determining that you love somebody, that you will fall in love with them.
Making up your mind that far in advance.
Right, like to apply to be on the show as one of the many, not one of the one. You don't get the choice in selection.
I mean, it's a transaction. I mean, everybody entering it, I assume, knows that they'll be seen by many, many people, and the outcome isn't really as important as them being seen. So the transaction basically works. Like, it can't really fail. If you're on the show, it works. Right. And then people opine, and they, like, get your back, or they hate you, and then you can have a spin-off of whatever you spin off into.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you can have a Rose spin-off or a microphone company.
I would watch a reality show just about this one rose and how it's sort of.
I'm curious as to the. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
There's sort of a kind of classical clothing taken apart theme on some of the people.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of people here. Like fancy clothing, yeah. So I just borrowed this dress from a New York-based designer, Lou Dallas. She makes wonderful handmade clothing. So I think that a lot of people in New York now who are really interested in expressing themselves through fashion are like seeking something that looks completely unique. Because it is completely unique. It is this very handmade quality. And I think that now, with the proliferation of fast fashion, just sort of replicating trends, that fast fashion would be like Zara and H&M and anything.
Like a place I can go and buy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to be stupid. How is that separate from fashion? So
fast fashion is a mega mass production, and it's literally fast in that like they can take a design and manufacture and produce it and get it into stores within like 2 to 3 weeks, whereas normal.
But is there like a line between Zara and say like Uniqlo and H&M?
Uniqlo has a similar mass quality, but it's not trend focused necessarily. So their design team would pre-design a like their whole collection of the season and then put it out, and they're not going to like see a runway collection and be like, we need to copy that. Whereas Zara might do something like that, or one of these others. Yeah. That's fast fashion. But I want to know more about what your breadth of knowledge. So you were saying remind me again what you write about?
I write about music and books, and yeah, more or less that.
What kind of music do you like the most?
What kind?
Yeah.
That's a hard question to answer, but I'll make it easier by picking the one thing we listened to yesterday that I liked the most, which was actually the Smiths. I watched an interview with Johnny Marr, and he seemed so. I just loved him, and I had never bothered to watch an interview with him, and it reminded me how much I loved them. And then I went into sort of an internet tube fest of what people think of them, how they react to them, the movies that.
What do you think people think of the Smiths now?
I don't know. Like, I'm old, so my memories are of this band coming out of nowhere and it being exciting because they didn't play normal rock music. They didn't have big bar chords and distortion, and the singer was sort of crazy. And I think people have an identification with them that I couldn't probably fathom. But I love watching people make up their own worlds, and they cared a lot about the hair stuff, and I just loved that clean guitar sound. Just made me so happy because that's how I play. I'm a musician and a writer, so Johnny Marr was a big thing for me when I was roughly the same size, but I was younger. But yesterday we listened to a lot of Smiths, and then an electronic artist, or I don't want to call her that. She's a composer. She uses turntables. Her name is Shiva Fesharecki, and she plays with orchestras, and she's amazing. And then we had headaches, and we stopped listening to music.
Damn, that's
yeah. But anyway,
that's like drinking too much like Kool-Aid until you get like a sugar high or something. That's really crazy.
But I'm excited because I've known Fiona from before. I know Mara. Natasha and I are in a writing group, so I really wanted to be in a place with people I've known for like a segment of time.
Yeah.
No, keep going.
No, I've only just discovered that not every writer, but that a lot of writers utilize writing groups, and because I'm now taking this writing workshop for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I just think that writing groups seem really awesome. It's in Crown Heights.
No, the group I'm in is really great. I don't exactly remember how I got into it, but I feel very lucky to be in it.
Yeah.
And I just went away for a reason, and I did a lot of writing, and I'm very anxious. Not anxious, but I'm excited to bring it to the group because I think they'll tell me if it's any good.
Yeah.
But I wrote more than I have in like ages. It's a novel.
Oh,
And like who knows what I'm doing? Probably I don't know what I'm doing, but they'll let me know. And I know that Fiona knows people in the group, so it's sort of like...
I know, I've been trying to get in the group for a year and they won't let me in. I know, we'll break down the walls. We're going to end our pre-show, actually.
Okay.
And gear into a series of...
Well, thank you so much for your time.
We'll see you in the room.
Yeah, I'll see you in there, Sasha. Cool. Oh, look.
We just
wow.
learned that camera woman and Sasha know each other, and now they're hugging. Small worlds.
Small
Okay,
world.
so I feel very uncomfortable with the camera person not behind the camera because now I don't know if it's
On us.
Well, I'm sure it is. In any case, what we're going to see now are a series of videos, among videos by Torey Thornton, who you interviewed before, Martina Cox, whose clothes I'm wearing, and who you saw before, and ads to make you donate, ideally, to the Trans Oral History Project of New York City in collaboration with the New York Public Library and Plan C Pills, among other.
All right, say that organization once more.
The New York Trans Oral History Project.
Trans Oral History Project. Donate. Go on the website. Look it up. Learn something.
Sick. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Eat, pray, fuck, live, laugh, love, back to me. Life on the road. Not afraid to try new things. And if you like it, you're taking me home. You hit it, we break it. Gotta try it, trisexual. DTT, down to try.
name is Anna Keys, and I'll be giving this presentation for the New York City Trans Oral History Project in collaboration with the New York Public Library's Community Oral History Project. This is an oral history project centered on the experiences of trans-identifying people.
Obviously, no shade to like all Black trans people everywhere. Like their experience is a totally different one from mine too.
Oh, you're good. Keep going. Go wherever you need to go. It's just I took this audio class, and the teacher literally said, "This range of frequency is the woman range, and this range of frequency is the male range." And I'm sitting there, a trans woman, like...
I take the politics knowledge very seriously, like I couldn't have politics, but the politics of not.
One day, she like told me, I think you're a woman, and my mom, I just like started to think a lot about her. When I was a kid, seeing her dress up for work, and for like
Well, let me just say this. I am absolutely my favorite person. And I think if narcissism lives, it lives in me. I really, really think I'm great. I cannot walk, I cannot stand up, I wobble, I fall down, I do everything. But I'd still rather be me than just about anybody. In terms of politics, I am what I would call a generalist, sort of like a general practitioner. See, when people say, oh, I can work on race stuff, but I don't want to have anything to do with homosexuality, or I don't want to deal with prostitution, or I don't want to deal with abortion. My theory is, the way I look at the pathology of our society and the pathology of oppression, is that you don't regard yourself as keeping a clean house if you just make up the bed. Don't do anything in the sink. Suppose you never flush the bathroom, but you always keep the bathtub clean. Suppose you never wash the skillets and you always have shiny, sparkling glasses. To me, if you're really going to deal with oppression and pathology, you have to deal with economics, you have to deal with media, you have to deal with the law, you have to deal with jockocracy, you have to deal with sexism, racism, ass-patting. Everything that is wrong, you have to deal with.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad you said that. How did this come about?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I think that most people want to have fun. But
that's what Cyndi Lauper says, right?
Yeah, girls just want to have fun. But you see, what I see as fun is a gamesmanship that has to do with anti-establishmentarianism. The real thing that I think is exciting is to deal with what is wrong with the establishment vis-a-vis people. And I think that I've thought about it and done.
You know, most people worry about things, and one thing I've noticed about you is that you like to get things done. You know, you've got this kind of positive approach. You never ever worry.
Yeah.
And does that?
But I have low standards, so I'm always satisfied with myself or other people. See, I have nobody around me in my immediate environment or in my immediate circle that I'm not satisfied with. Now, they're not perfect and they have faults, but I know a cup is not a lawnmower, and I know a watch is not a plant. And I know bug spray is not thread. And if you realize that different people are different and have limitations, and yet you can make use of them in the appropriate time, you're not disappointed in people. If you try to turn thread into a motor car or a tire into a plate, you're in big trouble.
You know, that's another thing you do. You talk in metaphors. Did you get that from someone in your family? Or
I don't know.
One, 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 two, one, 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 two, one, 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 two, one, one, one.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 1.
In the midst of a live stream.
1, 2, 1.
Are you gay?
1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1.
More and more and more
1,
women.
2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1.
How can you not want to know?
1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2.
Previously on Pillow Talk.
Nicholas Carodi presented The Intimacy of Distance, or Decorating as Lubricant, which investigates Studio 20, an adult webcam or camming studio located on the top floor of a strip mall in Hollywood, featuring a series of rooms set off along a hallway. Each is a set, with one half featuring a camera, lights, and a computer, while the other is decorated, typically to create the appearance of a bedroom. This is achieved through a reduced set of signifiers, such as a bed made with only a fitted sheet, or a door decal, rendering it usable for different workers. In spite of this generic functionality, the domestic setup still produces value, creating a sense of intimacy by giving the work on display an aura of authenticity. Concurrently, the decorations contribute to the sexual capital of the worker within a field in which the domestic and the personal are associated with the erotic. Together with the various technological devices, the decor not only facilitates the work on display, but supports a global soma-technical economy of bodily fluids, data, and capital. The essay attempts to trace often opaque movements of value fracked from masturbating bodies through the circuits of finance capitalism, as well as the economies of its workers, such as the gift economy of Amazon wishlists supplementing their income, and the uncompensated, effective labor embedded in the work.
Pink silk panties. I just love them. Hello? Oh, hi, George. What's new and different?
It's also really interesting, the words they don't say. You know, the words that are used instead of, like, working girls instead of prostitute.
To be a Las Vegas showgirl?
Oh, yeah, I can believe that.
Did you know that Lucy's mom is city councilwoman of Knoxville?
Oh, God.
I'm not allowed to. Well, okay, George. I tell you what, why don't you talk...
You should try to get more sleep at night.
So what do we want to do if one of us is short on rent? Do we want to ask this person who tends to have more money floating around in the bank, or do we all want to chip it together? Is that a make or break situation? If you are short on rent this month, are you out? Or is that something that we can work with? It's similar. You can expand the frame to think of conflict in general. Like, We can go into our relationships imagining that conflict will never happen, and that if conflict does happen, it's just not meant to be, and fuck that person. And that tends to be a really unhelpful and immature way to navigate relationships because conflict always happens.
Thank you very much. The name Cutie Reader Girl comes from the name given to a favorite reader at one of Cutie Reader Girl's favorite eatery gazing grounds. Originally, there was a humor to the MySpace genre live journal blogspot handle, but this name quickly turned into a reality, an opportunity for experimentation and further observation for Cutie Reader Girl.
PDA. Purposeful Discursive Angels.
Practicing dignity and amity.
Publicity displacing affection, pubic directed attention.
Pleasure divining accommodations.
Poetry dogging advertising.
Power, domesticity, alienation. Property, delusion, authority.
Privacy, disorder, apocalypse. It's a party deflowering our architecture. Pillow Talk.
6200 Hollywood Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90028.
All right, welcome. Matt, is this working? So basically we're live streaming right now, basically. But it's the first day of Mercury retrograde. And so we've had all sorts of exciting deals with that. What you were just looking at is a series of... Well, first, hi, my name is Fiona.
I'm Mara.
And we've been working on this program together for the last,
6 months? Yeah.
Yeah, 6 months sounds right. And we put on this is our second event. Can you tell us a bit about the first event we saw previously on?
Yeah, this is to retroactively explain what you just saw, which was a lot of media. But the last videos were basically sort of post trailers of the first event that we did called PDA. And PDA was sort of an effort to understand our relationships to architecture, to our domestic realities, to sort of policies around living together. And I guess looking at that event in the context of this event is important because we I guess for this one we really wanted to zoom out and understand how our relationship to sex and love operates in a city. And so this will be the first event of the series, Sex and Love in the City. And then next week, in 2 weeks, we have one in LA. So that'll be the sort of corresponding sister event. But yeah.
And this microphone does not amplify us within the room. It's for the live stream. FYI. And both Mara and I are very soft-spoken individuals. So I have tall friends at the back. I like that the two people in the room who are 6'4" and taller stood. Anyway, you can wave us if we're too quiet. Right? Everyone has a task here. Which reminds me of Florynce Kennedy, who was the teacup plate, etc. She's one of my favorite thinkers. This is her book, Color Me Flow, which is a series of essays. This isn't for sale, although many books are for sale. This is my library copy because it goes in and out of print like crazy, and it drives me nuts that I can't order it all the time. I'm a bookseller. If you want to buy books, you would greatly help me because book selling is a broke endeavor. So yeah, welcome to our first ever event in New York. Pillow Talk started in January 2017. 2018. It's just been a year and a half. And this is our 13th ever event. And initially, it was conceived as a completely unmediated space. We took over the penthouse suite of the Standard downtown LA once a month for a year. And mostly I was programming, but I would also invite guest curators to come in and do their own thing. And we had discussions about masculinity, about are we allowed to swear on the live stream? What Mandy Harris-Williams, who helped with a lot of events, called fuck music. Music that you like to have sex to. We had a kind of Me Too-like consciousness-raising circle early in it that was femme-centered. I don't know, we explored all sorts of themes, so that's sort of the concept. And today, it's usually at night. This is my first daytime event. And I have no sense of time because we're just in the present moment right now. We're going to do Sex and Love in the City of New York City. And maybe we can just gear right in. Yeah? I'm not forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess the one thing that has come up a lot in putting this event together were sort of like structural issues around content, like what can be seen in private versus what can be seen in public. So I guess like for the coming like wave of content, and into the discussions, we very much want to hear from you guys about what you respond to in terms of what has had to be like blurred out or sort of made sensitive.
Yeah. And I almost forgot, I have quotes. Are we ready for quotes? All right, so these are 4 quotes in my book duties that I summoned for the theme. The first one goes, are we ready, Matt? He's going to overlay these quotes in the live stream, so it's going to look really professional. If you look at a city, there's no way to see it. One person can never see a city. You can miss it, hate it, or realize that it's taken something from you, but you can't go somewhere and look at it and just see it empirically. It has to be informed, imagined by many people at a time. It's an everyday group hallucination. And that's from Rena Spallings by Bernadette Corporation, a book by somewhere between 20 and 150 different authors. Next. In my dreams, New York is New York, dense, informational, sexed. I dream of motion and brick and crowd, of fields of visions like audio stereograms, concentrated, tight, magic eyes. And then I'm here, in clamorous, hunky NYC. Here I have a human body, otherwise it's exactly like in my dreams. Stacked bodies beckon me into buildings that sidewalk uptown. Chinatown stinks, I want in its alleys. People move me, like Anna. Anna was in every dream. And that's by me, from an article called Stress in the City, which was published in the now defunct Adult magazine. That was an adult magazine that I helped edit. It was founded by Sarah Nicole Prickett in 2014, maybe? Good years, we got hacked a lot. And then maybe I'll read right from the books for these ones. Vivian Gornick. I thought Thora would be here, who recently interviewed Vivian Gornick for a publication called Affidavit. Most people are in New York because they need evidence in large quantities of human expressiveness, and they need it not now, but every day. Or they need it not now and then, but every day. This is what they need. Those who go off to the manageable cities can do without. Those who come to New York cannot. My final one. Has anybody read this book? It's called Gentrification of the Mind by Sarah Schulman. I was at a nail salon recently on the Upper East Side, and a woman next to me asked me what I was reading, and so I got to give her a précis, and she was like, heavy, far too heavy for summer reading. It's about HIV, AIDS, and gentrification in New York, and city policy and real estate and whatnot. So here's the quote. In the 1970s, New York City faced bankruptcy. The remaining poor, working class, and middle class residents simply did not provide a wide enough tax base to support the city's infrastructure. It was a place of low rents, open neighborhoods, and mixed cultures. City policy began to be developed with the stated goal of attracting wealthier people back to the city in order to be able to pay the municipal bills. However, now, the city is overflowing with rich people and continues to close hospitals, eliminate bus lines, and fire teachers. So the excuse presented for gentrification 40 years ago is revealed by historic reality to have been a lie. We now know that real estate profit was the motive for these policies. Tax breaks were deliberately put in place to attract real estate developers to convert low-income housing into condominiums and luxury rentals to attract high-income tenants. It is not a conspiracy, but a simple, tragic example of historic coincidence that in the middle of this process of converting low-income housing into housing for the wealthy, in 1981, to be precise, the AIDS epidemic began. This book traces how HIV/AIDS and the death of a huge population of important people in New York City kind of expedited gentrification, both in New York and in San Francisco. And it's sort of a memoir of different people who Sarah Schulman knew when she was doing activism in the 80s and 90s. So with that, I think we're going to bring up our first speaker, Dion. Where do you want to go? I think so.
My name is Dion Olivier, and I'm an independent certified personal trainer. My practice is called Flux Vitality and presents a hybrid focus of fitness, mental health, and nutrition within the context of transgressive wellness. The title of my presentation is called Conduit, Resilience, Adaptation, and Valor at the Threshold of Hypercapital. What is hypercapitalism? Hypercapitalism is a term used by Marxist scholars in their continuing critique of political economy to depict a relatively new form of capitalistic social organization marked by the speed and intensity of global flows that include exchange of both material and immaterial goods, people, and information. Hypercapitalism is blamed by critical scholars for causing misbalance and fragmentation of social life by allowing commercial or business interests to penetrate every aspect of human experience. That's a quote by Martina Vaccarella. She's the assistant professor of journalism in the Department of Communication at Monmouth University. How hypercapitalism manifests in the body. Here we have the ecosystem of the sphere of influence of wellness in today's market-driven world. For example, the comp time and benefits of a job, if you're lucky to have them, marketing and advertising, information technology, community outreach, and so forth. A more specific example of this manifestation is presented by British writer and cultural theorist Mark Fisher, who wrote extensively about the interplay between the onslaught of neoliberalism and its malevolent effects on mental health, particularly in young people, in his illuminating book Capitalist Realism, published a year after the financial collapse of the Great Recession in 2008. He writes, in the 1960s and 1970s, radical theory and politics coalesced around extreme mental conditions such as schizophrenia, arguing, for instance, that madness was not a natural but a political category. In Britain, depression is now the condition that is most treated by the NHS. In his book The Selfish Capitalist, Oliver James has convincingly posited a correlation between rising rates of mental distress and the neoliberal mode of capitalism practiced in countries like Britain, the USA, and Australia. We need to ask, how has it become acceptable that so many people, and especially so many young people, are ill? What is resilience? So what can we do about this? I suggest 3 pillars of wellness that can help us survive in a hyper-capitalist world: resilience, adaptation, and valor. What is resilience? I'm sure we're all familiar with this feeling of hopelessness and inertia. Resistance is futile. The quote famously associated with science fiction alludes to human obsolescence in the shadow of the militarization of police, technological surveillance, and the influence of corporations in finance and the lobbying of the state. Resilience, as opposed to resistance, is not the industrious self-obsession of the individual, commonly portrayed in our culture of media, music, and advertising, of competitive performance of the self against all. Rather, I suggest resilience is actually the elasticity formed by the sum of the parts of a collaborative community of shared resources, such as educating each other on how to find a therapist, how to switch to a plant-based diet, how to exercise effectively and hold each other mutually accountable and inspired, and so forth. This is most prescient to me in the phrase, each one teach one, which originated in the United States during slavery, when Africans were denied education. Enslaved people were kept in a state of ignorance about anything beyond their immediate circumstances, which were under control of owners, the lawmakers and authorities. When a slave learned or was taught to read, it became their duty to teach someone else, spawning the phrase, each one teach one. This is further illustrated in a cartoon by Larry Gonick, illustrator of the book Hypercapitalism, a cartoon critique of the modern economy and its values. It says, if we can go back. It says, since the time of the algae, organisms have competed for resources, but don't get the idea that evolution is a simple war of all against all, in which the weak perish and only the strong survive. No, from the very beginning of life, one of the most successful survival strategies has been cooperation. So, what is adaptation? I like the acronym GOD, or Grow or Die, a common saying in communities of cognitive behavioral therapy, such as the Alcoholics Anonymous community of recovery. That's just another example that I liked. So the most ubiquitous struggle of humankind is the unavoidable truth that we are living in the Anthropocene. That's the point at which disastrous climate change arguably cannot be curbed. This quote illustrates this. Across the world today, our actions testify to our belief that we can go on like this forever. Burning oil, poisoning the seas, killing off other species, pumping carbon into the air, ignoring the ominous silences of our coal mine canaries in favor of the unending robotic tweets of our new digital imaginarium. Yet the reality of global climate change is going to keep intruding on our fantasies of perpetual growth. Permanent innovation and endless energy, just as the reality of our mortality, shocks our casual faith in permanence. That's a quote from Roy Scranton. That's from his book, Learning to Die in the Anthropocene, for reflections on the end of a civilization. You can't change the world, but you can change yourself. What that means to me is that within the ultimatum of the Anthropocene, I particularly like that quote from the documentarian Adam Curtis's 2016 film Hypernormalization, which includes an excerpt from the 1982 best-selling VHS tape of all time, Jane Fonda's Workout, which removed the intimidation of fitness, making it widely accessible to the masses, and bringing a sense of autonomy and empowerment to millions of people, and subsequently launching the explosion of the modern fitness industry.
Shoulders, your head to the right, back, left, forward, let your shoulders relax, and left.
So, within all this, why is fitness important? This chart, published in Neuroscience of Exercise, From Neurobiology Mechanisms to Mental Health, displays a relationship between exercise and serotonin and dopamine, the chemicals in our bodies that regulate depression and neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to adapt to sources of stress and retain cognitive functionality. Similarly, a relationship is being found between gut bacteria and mental health. Nutrition plays a massive part in maintaining a functioning relationship between gut bacteria and the release of serotonin and other neurotransmitters responsible for balanced brain function. You feel what you eat. So then what is valor? Possessing by letting go of things was a secret of ownership unknown to youth. Yukio Mishima. That's a quote by Yukio Mishima, who I believe is an outstanding postmodern avatar of the motivation for the resilient valor necessary to thrive in today's constantly shifting world. To try to control and manipulate everything is a war lost from day one. Rather, to remain as a liquid and flow through the violence of a pathological society, focusing on that which can change with initiative, focusing on that one can change with initiative in one's immediate environment, and the great letting go of what one cannot is the je ne sais quoi of the modern condition of valor. Here's an amusing visual representation of valor in hypercapital. This is BTO Perform. It's a brand that sells compression tops for bodybuilding. And this is another quote from Mishima that I liked. Only through the group, I realized, through the sharing, the suffering of the group, could the body reach the height of existence that the individual alone could never attain. And for the body to reach that level at which the divine might be glimpsed, a dissolution of individuality was necessary, leading to an ever-mounting shared suffering and to death, which was the ultimate suffering. The group must be open to death, which meant, of course, that it must be a community of warriors. That's from his book, Sun and Steel. The great danger of fitness culture today, to me, is the obsession over the illusions presented by the image in social media and advertising, the endless feed of seemingly perfect, unobtainable bodies. French culture theorist and urbanist Paul Virilio predicted the dynamics of the body as both reverential avatar and instantaneous disposability in his critique of information technology in the book Open Sky in 1995, far before the advent of social media and instantaneous dating apps such as Tinder and Grindr. In closing, these three concepts of resilience, adaptation, and valor are three pillars of a sustainable flux of wellness within the specter of an unsustainable trajectory of hypercapital. That's the end. Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Dion? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your personal training practice. New Yorkers.
Yeah. I think it's my practice in New York are relevant together because I had to develop my practice working in the kind of intense high-performance world of advertising. Meaning by high performance, I mean I'm a producer also, so I have to produce content, and I have to be on set 12, 16 hours a day. You know, first thing in the morning, I had to figure out how to condense an effective workout in 45 minutes. So doing that, I figured out how to apply that to people who wanted to train with me. And because if you live in New York, if you have a job, you're probably working the job of 3 people, and if you don't, you're probably spending all your time looking for work. So throughout that insanity, I had to figure out how I can maintain my own sanity, and exercise and nutrition has been the answer for me.
Are you taking clients now?
At the moment, I am full up on clients, but I have openings from time to time.
Are your clients aware of your whole pathos when they enter a contract with you? They sign up for what you just presented to us?
I love that you use the word pathos. That's awesome. They're actually not. And sorry, the question is, are my clients aware of my pathos before they sign up to train with me? Most people are coming to me through social media, so they have somewhat of an understanding of the principles that I'm interested in communicating, but this talk actually has been an opportunity for me to expand more on the methodology behind the training, because when someone's paying, you know, for a minute, every minute, so much money to train with them, you kind of can't cram all of this philosophy into it, you know. So it's more about like addressing breathing throughout the workout, like addressing what their motivation is. Are they stressed? There's something going on in their life, you know, trying to use that to channel that energy to work through the workout. So finding ways to deal with the kind of like the stress of living in New York. Do you have time for another question?
Yeah. What are you reading right now?
I'm rereading Open Sky actually again, because I think it's really, the last year for me with Instagram has been a really weird year. I just kind of like, social media has hit a point of like peak social media where it's like, there's just so much content that we're bombarded by that it's like no one has any time to consume any of it. And it's also just, you know, like that quote to me really illustrates a lot of the problems of the body and the image. And so he wrote that before it all even started. And so it's been interesting for me to read a philosopher who is writing about it before he even started, and like what might be the next, how we can move on from this feeling, because I feel like it's a feeling that a lot of people have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to gear into another brief commercial break. Before that, I want to tell you that I like Adam Curtis, but he elides a lot of things in his documentary. And the one with hypernormalization, I wish he had discussed that Jane Fonda's empire, media, exercise empire, a lot of that money was funded back into, the Campaign for Economic Democracy, organizations that she and her husband, who were leftists, had founded in the 70s and continued into the 80s. So it's not just about being a Barbie perfect, but she had kind of organized that as a way to fund something that was otherwise unfundable. That's cool. Are we good, Matt? Cool. We'll get that on. Everything that you're seeing here is also on the live stream, but it's like a couple minutes off or something.
Could you introduce yourself to the camera?
My name is Jamieson Webster. I'm a psychoanalyst in New York City and a writer. My last book was called Conversion Disorder. It was published by Columbia last year in November. There's a lot of patients. There's one which is a little girl from the Bronx who has a hysterical pregnancy. There's another patient who burns herself accidentally. There's a patient at the end of the book, which is a story about someone who lost a child late into pregnancy. So there are all these kind of vicissitudes of sex cases. The oldest institute is 111 years old, but the huge wave of psychoanalysts came over after World War II. So a ton of analysts emigrated here. I think part of the problem was that they had to assimilate to the American system, which to them became this kind of being normative psychiatrist, the kind of Betty Draper psychoanalyst that everyone imagines. And it was a lot less wild than it was in Europe at that point. I think just a sense that psychoanalysis was a radical practice, that it was like recognizing bisexuality and homosexuality and just the disruptive force of sex. And here it became this kind of like stop being neurotic program. And Freud was worried about this. He was worried that psychoanalysis would become puritanical. You actually see it in all his letters when he was coming to visit Clark University the one time that he came to the United States. And he said, these guys are a bunch of Puritans. This is a disaster. I mean, I think that the Tinder Raya world here is pretty brutal. And so it's not just the energy of the city and the 9 million people, but then there's 9 million people on Raya and Tinder. And so it becomes very hard to pick anything, and also just this sense that you can set up 7 dates in an evening, but then you don't know what any of them mean. And there's also this brutality of the ghosting and the zombie.
Have you ever heard this analogy that I've heard a lot of women make about New York, that it's like an abusive lover, that they think they should leave but can't for either like some sort of sensual, emotional, or perverse attachment, or financial attachment?
I have heard that. Although, you know, it's either the abusive lover or it's like the best lover that you've ever had.
Right. And sometimes
depends on how you look at it. Right.
You made me crazy. You made me wild. Just like a baby, you spun me around like a child. But beyond, don't be proud. Beyond me, don't be proud. Like an American.
Like an American. I mean, I had a 5-year plan.
I had a 5-year plan. I always belong to you.
And I trusted everyone.
In my fear, we're always stuck in second gear, but I was there for you.
I was there for you,
Trusted
and I trusted everyone because everyone trusted you.
Wanna hear a joke?
Do you want to hear a joke? I was on the American Flag's website. It looked like it could, and I wondered how it tasted. But is touch still necessary? There was no plot. It made no sense, to be honest. Like the end was unresolved. Okay, spoiler joke. Were you interested in exploring control? Or was the answer? You were a member. You were shaking hands in the cage. No. But I was there for you.
So our next live contributor is Natasha Stagg, who's going to read from her forthcoming book, Sleeveless, and these were the ones in Spike. They were initially in a column that she had at Spike magazine, which I think she's starting up again. It's like a feature column every summer, and these are last summers. Yeah, okay. Sleeveless is out in October. Do you want to sit or stand?
I don't think that's enough introduction for it, I guess. Setup. What is the best compliment a total stranger could ever give you? If you were rich, would you want the world to know it? For your birthday party, would you rather go to the tastiest restaurant or the fanciest? There are people, apparently, who fetishize giving away money to other people who demand it semi-anonymously. This is evidenced by a large number of sexy, often faceless selfie posts that use hashtags like cash drain and pay pig and wallet rape and all these other ones, usually some foot fetish mentions too, and are captioned with something bossy like no broke losers, pay piggies wanted. There is no promise of mutual benefit like with certain live cam sites. There is not a financial goal that will unlock another screen, another image, another live sex act. It's called financial domination. Other hashtags are FinDom and FinSub. I like the term wallet rinse most. It's like it's somehow cleansing to pay a stranger for no reason. Sometimes I too get confused about money and it accidentally feels cleansing to spend it until it's gone, and then I remember that money doesn't work that way. Do these FinSub people regret the payments? If they do, is that a regret based in shame, or do they feel duped? Do the cash drainers feel as turned on by payments as the pay pigs do? Money is an aphrodisiac, obviously. At some nice restaurant, I noticed that at every table sat an older or very old man and a younger or very young woman. The women were beautiful, with styled hair and highlighted cheeks. The dinner was expensive, the view was almost breathtaking, and all around me girls pulled the ribbons from paper shopping bags containing the gifts that would keep an affair alive. Someone asked me how much financial status and relative success mattered to me in a partner, like he was testing me. Of course, I'd like to say that they don't at all, but that's kind of like saying the person's existence doesn't matter. Everyone has a financial status, and I suppose it matters that a person is not staggeringly insecure about his or her own. Does relative success mean relatively successful since all success is relative, or as successful as me? Success measured financially? I hardly ever date people with social media accounts, so the numerical value of their popularity hasn't usually come into play. If we're talking about success as in self-satisfaction, I'm not interested. All I really care about is conversation and sex. I would care then if the notions of one's net worth or career track inhibited them. That's the most judicious answer I can come up with. So often I wonder how people get the money they must have in order to live in New York. People are good about keeping it a secret, but I am not. I will tell you how much I have in my bank account and how much I spend every day, what different clients pay me, and my rates per word for articles. I will tell you a breakdown of my taxes the day I have to pay them, and then I will immediately forget. I try not to talk too much about numbers because those same people who keep their finances super secret, I've noticed, will tell me that I'm doing everything wrong. I should make myself a business. I should expense everything. I should hire an accountant. I should have signed a contract. And then from them, on their own fees and budgets, nothing. They sublet their apartments sometimes, but I know that can't be the only source. It's best not to think about it since the answer is always anticlimactic. It's family money in so many words. The fantasy of a sugar daddy is one that we all now know takes a lot of work and ruins a reputation. That's not the only thing stopping women from courting the relationship, though. It's that there aren't so many to go around, and the rich men know it. An aging sugar baby is in serious danger of being dropped for someone younger. If they married you, you are still getting the axe. Sorry. You just want one higher to become a trophy wife, but those are meant to be collected. The motivation for becoming a sugar baby shouldn't be that it's easy, since really it's not. Fighting natural inclinations in order to appease a phony agreement is more taxing than waiting on tables, since it doesn't have as many breaks. But getting paid to be sexy is a fetish, just like paying someone is. The motivation, ideally, is the fetish on both ends. There is power in receiving money, and there is power in giving it. Both exchanges, when sexual desire is involved, are taboo, but for some reason one is seen as submissive while the other is understood to be dominating. The designations feel arbitrary at best. The exchange of money has always been intrinsically related to desire, and therefore it has always been peripheral to sex. I love the idea of turning the actual bank account into a sex organ, asking for it to be filled or emptied, and the additional distance created by blind messages and conflicting hashtags, Findom and FinSub are always listed one after the other. Does financial status and success matter to you in a partner? No, say the cash strainers. What matters is that there is no partner, only the money itself, an extension of no one, an expression of nothing, only a representation of pure desire entering another.
Every woman under attack has the right to defend herself. And in situations where we are constant victims of brutality, we must take on the whole armor and defend ourselves. And at this time, we must fight back when and ever we are unjustly attacked. Freedom, you talk about freedom. Freedom, it's yours, it's right here, and it's your right. They may label you, try to classify you, and even call you a crazy bitch. But don't flinch, just let them.
My name is Samuel Delany, Chip Delany, to all my friends. This is the 20th anniversary of Times Square Red, Times Square Blue. On the cover, this is what you used to see when you came out of the Port Authority at the time it was written. That building is no longer there. It's written about stuff from the early 60s, from the early 60s up through the time when this was published.
In 99. So I've read a couple passages. I really like for this, it's part of a social practice program. So the beginning of the second essay, Times Square Red.
The primary thesis underlying my several arguments here is that, given the mode of capitalism under which we live, life is at its most rewarding, productive, and pleasant when large amounts of people understand, appreciate, and seek out interclass contact and communication conducted in a mode of goodwill. In the 42nd Street area sex theaters specifically, since I first started frequenting them in the summer of '75, I've met playwrights, carpenters, opera singers, telephone repairmen, stockbrokers, guys on welfare, guys with trust funds, guys on crutches, on walkers, in wheelchairs, teachers, warehouse workers, male nurses, fancy chefs, guys who worked at Dunkin' Donuts, guys who gave out flyers on street corners, guys who drove garbage trucks, and guys who washed windows in the Empire State Building. My secondary thesis is, however, that the class war raging constantly and often silently in the comparatively stabilized societies of the developed world, though it is at times as hard to detect as Freud's unconscious or the structure of discourse, perpetually works for the erosion of the social practices through which interclass communication takes place and of the institutions holding those practices stable. So that new institutions must always be conceived and set in place to take over the jobs of those that are battered again and again until they are destroyed.
I guess you to read a differently sexy bit. Oh, this is nice.
There are many different styles, intensities, and timbres of sex as there are people. The variety of nuance and attitude blends into the variety of techniques and actions employed, which finally segs as seamlessly into the variety of sexual objects the range of humankind desires. We do a little better when we sexualize our own manner of having sex, learn to find our own way of having sex. Sexy. I tried scruff and I couldn't walk that far, so the scruff and grinder are not things that I tried it once, and it was a kind of bust as far as I was concerned.
I'm like Riich Psycho. Everybody wants to be a Riich Psycho.
Worry about a basic bitch on your own time. Worry about a basic bitch on your own time. Worry about a basic bitch on your own time. Maxed out, cashed out, bitch, I'm on my grind. Maxed out, cashed out, bitch, I'm on my grind. Maxed out, cashed out, bitch, I'm on my grind. Maxed out, cashed out, bitch, I'm on my grind.
You had 5 words to describe what New York City feels like. What would they be?
New York City feels like shit. Like, honestly. But it's also very fun because all the people that I know live here. So it's shitty, fun, eclectic, very cold. And Cold, like in my heart, cold. And fake.
Right.
Yeah, just fake.
What would the 5 words of your ideal place to live be?
Ideal place. Euphoric. That's what I would like. Really euphoric feeling. Not a utopia though. It needs a balance. So balanced. Good and evil. Like, caring. Gotta have that respect in there. And just more green. More green. If that's a characteristic to describe it.
It is very possible, even likely, that we won't be celebrating the 47th anniversary of Roe v. Wade this time next year.
Even if Roe versus Wade is upheld, there are still 4 out of 5 women in this country who don't have access to a safe abortion.
They need a plan C, and they need it now.
Very hectic.
Yeah. All the time when I'm at home, I just love being there. Yeah. When I'm at school, I feel really safe. Yeah. I just feel really comfortable a lot of the time.
That's great. Intimacy to me is I see you, you see me. Together we walk through humanity. And I want to give you the space to be free, and I accept you completely. That's intimacy. Thank you. Okay. That was good.
Ourselves, but I think the like community-based intimacy is like even more important here than I think has ever been anywhere I've lived. Just because there are so many like other factors and things are so confined, and the city is so like big and busy in a way that I think consecrating spaces or like making things sacred between like groups of people ends up being like a super important thing. And so I feel like a lot.
I didn't really want to, I was encouraged to go to the first gay march on Fifth Avenue. I didn't go, I went and watched in sort of like hiding because it was on TV, and I thought, oh my God, of course my mother never watched TV, so I don't know what I was thinking, but somebody might see me that would know me. And then somewhere around 42nd Street, I saw some friends and they started to say, so I ended up getting in the march.
Was I don't know how many of you got a chance to watch Valentina's video that we sent out as a link to all those RSVP'd ahead of time, but you'll be able to still access that link afterwards, so have some context. But because this is going to be on YouTube and on this big plaza screen immediately after, and just generally because we're working with like this kind of entity, we're often coming up against questions of censorship. And so this is our way of showing and not showing, which we thought was an interesting way to open up a dialogue about showing and not showing. So we chose a sensitive content filter on Instagram. Do you want me to ask you a question? Where's Mara also? Can you come up? I think because I'm not a visual artist, I'm more of a writer and discursive person, where I'm finding frustration in what can be shared and not shared is at the level of discourse. For instance, someone who I really wanted to involve in this program is a friend of mine who works as a nurse in New York City and has for the last 6 years, but she's from Canada, so she knows the Canadian healthcare system and the American healthcare system. And she's like a really rad young woman with a lot of insight, and I was hoping that she would be able to share, but she was very worried about job security if she said anything, even not that critical of the institutions in which she works. And that's something that I do come upon with people who are working not just in the, or who aren't working in the arts, that there's a lot of like hush hush. And so that would be my upset, but I understand that visual shares are also very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the like lead-up process to like from the moment we started talking to like right now, there's been like this kind of growing dialogue around censorship and what's acceptable for a private event and what's acceptable for a public event. And it's not dissimilar, I guess, to like what I think everyone is pretty familiar with in terms of, I mean, at like the most basic level, like a community guidelines breach on social media. But I think sometimes, like, and especially in the case of your video that you made, like, somehow the blurred content becomes like much more horny, and like the non-blurred content becomes like much more sort of severe and like dials back any kind of like sort of sexuality, and like sort of like makes us sort of rethink what we're watching. So maybe you can kind of talk about that sort of blur, non-blur.
Yeah, and how it felt maybe when we told you that we can't show it all.
Right, yeah.
And how those negotiations and communications.
Well, personally, I wasn't thrilled about it. But it is what it is, and it's actually identical to the day-to-day reality of living in New York, making a living, being of a certain age, having a certain way of going about how you want to handle your finances. And that world is still private as it has always been. Like, there's that video that Chip did, and like, you know, right when you walk out of Port Authority, it says something like, "Welcome to New York, you know, major adult playground." You know, you want to see the video, you don't even need to see the video. Walk right down the block where I work, walk into the club, get a lap dance, and see what it is. It's the same thing. And when you put into reality the financial situation and the fact that when someone pays for this intimate, short-lived experience, they feel that they have a right to insist and get what they want, and then there's still the resistance, and people like to forget the fact that there's still a service being provided. Just like there's a service being provided when you are in a relationship and there's a give and a take and there's a compromise. So there's always like the power dynamic and the struggle and the insistence and the resistance. And then you go into the subject of truth, and there's like, the truth goes through three stages. First it's ridiculed, then it's violently opposed, and then it's obvious, you know? So that's what it is.
Does anybody have a question for Valentina? Sorry? Oh, yeah, we can pass the rose.
Who wants the beautiful flower?
Be careful to also take the...
Maybe it's not there.
What?
Maybe
some way to get it involved and shared. Yeah.
I like that it can live different lives and like have these different dialogues around it.
Yeah, I think only the thing that I find quite sad is the censoring makes it pornographic, and it's not the first and it's not the last time things like this are going to happen. But, you know, you saw the video, there's no nudity. You can see it as sexual, but honestly, like, when I made this video and I did the work, I didn't see it as a sexual thing. I mean, yeah, that's there, but it's more about the power struggle between two people and like what you're giving and emotional labor and what someone tries to take and doesn't respect. And there's like a desperation and there's a rejection. And that happens in relationships all the time.
Could you maybe describe what you get to see for those who haven't gotten to see?
So what you see is a very tight, close shot of I'm very gently grinding on a guy. I'm clothed. It's basically a lap dance. And he's consistently trying to penetrate me, like, you know, get into my underwear. And I'm consistently pulling his hand away. And I don't know if any of you have seen Vito Acconci's Prying's performance. He performed it at a university. That's a very strong reference point for me, except the difference is Vito is consistently trying to pry open a woman's eye. And, like, even when he gets to the point that he opens her eye, her iris rolls back. So she still doesn't even allow you to see into her eye. So I found that very inspiring.
The last event we did, there was all sorts of... Initially, the events, when they are completely private, it's just like a free-for-all, right? And you don't ever think about it. And all of a sudden trying to think of just like opening it up a little bit. But the amazing thing about that and what's happened in the last 4 months is that my father always tells me that I live in little self-created bubbles, and in opening it up in new spaces, new venues, bigger, broadcast, I've now been confronted with people who are opposed to what I'm doing, which was a shock, and that's embarrassing for someone in their 30s to have maybe that. But I have moved around in these like very self-created kind of community bubbles where there wasn't really friction in the rooms ever in the past, and now there's friction. And maybe that's also moving to New York and the series going bi-coastal for the first time, and just like the stakes being higher here in terms of people's mostly financial interests and like liability, I think is at a greater level here, whereas in LA people are a little bit more loose. Also very possible in LA people are like, I have no idea what she's talking about or what any of them are talking about, so just let them do it. That could be maybe the leading factor. Should we ask the audience some questions?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to hear from anyone who watched the video last night. So maybe you could make yourself known if you want to come up and talk about seeing this version.
I know, you were just nodding along so well. You find the one person who's like nodding along in agreement with you, and you're like, okay, that's my person. We can switch gears. Does anybody have any responses to any of the material that we've shown? Yowza, it's like I'm in Toronto.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, maybe it's yeah. I guess personal testimony in events where it's not mediated, people get, I think, a lot just like wilder, which is why usually they're not mediated. Although it's been nice to be able to create a document, sort of evidence what Pillow Talk is about, because when I invite people to contribute, they're usually very, very, very confused about what it is. And even when you invite people to attend, they're confused as to what it is. So I think this helps a little bit, a fragment. Okay, closing remarks before we go to the last videos, and then we'll go downstairs and you're welcome to hang out and see replays, is I want to thank Mara, who kind of swooped in and gave Pillow Talk a new life when I was kind of ready to give up on it and disinterested in anything to do with sex, which might still be the case, personally, but my libido's channeled elsewhere. But I am very interested in the community and collaborative aspects of it, and working through stuff in a group. So I'm grateful for everybody who's come, and I'm really grateful for Mara for bringing new visions and excitement and support. Thank you.
Just one more thing to add. If you didn't feel comfortable talking in here in front of everyone, but you have questions or like interests, or you want to talk about something, you can come up to Fiona and I after downstairs.
Hello, my name is Anna Keys, and I'll be hosting this conversation for the New York City Trans Oral History Project in collaboration with the New York Public Library's Community Oral History Project. This is an oral history project centered on the experiences of trans-identifying people.
Obviously, no shade to like all Black trans people everywhere. Like their experience is a totally different one from mine too.
You're good. Keep going. Go wherever you need to go. It's just I took this audio class, and the teacher literally said, "This range of frequency is the woman range, and this range of frequency is the male range." And I'm sitting there, a trans woman, like
I take the politics knowledge very seriously. Like I couldn't politics, but the politics.
One day, she like told me, I think you're a woman, and my mom, I just like started to think a lot about her. When I was a kid, seeing her dress up for work and for like.
I joined some of these things just because I thought I should, and it was kind of fun, and I knew I'd meet people.
One, two, one, two, 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 two. Two, three.